We're here for episode 7 of the Outer Chambers. And I'm excited. Come on into the room, everybody. We're live with the show for the brothers and by the brothers. My name is Brother Quentin A. Brooker, Esquire. I am the 6th Spring 98 Mighty OE, Bethune-Cookman College. I'm currently active in financial in the Rho Beta Beta chapter of Houston, Texas, in the mighty 9th District. And I'm excited tonight for us to continue this great work and these great conversations that we've been having. I got a very special guest for you tonight to talk about a very important topic. The title of the show tonight is biblical. We're going to get biblical, everybody. Talk a little bit about the word. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 3. That's the title of the show tonight. And I'm excited about how that's going to go down. To all of the good brothers all across the world, I say greetings. Greetings to all of the brothers from all of our districts all across the world. Come on into the chambers. Invite a friend. Come on there, man, and chop it up with us. We won't be too long, but we will be talking about some things that are relevant to us as brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Again, I am extremely excited about our show tonight. I have a very good brother that I'm about to introduce in a few minutes. And we're going to chop it up, man. We're going to talk about some things that are important to us as brothers and should be important to everyone that care about the uplift of Black society. So, brothers, again, I appreciate everything that you do and that you've done. Come on in, and come on in. Right now, man, go ahead and pound on the like button and pound on the share button. Let's let all of the brothers know that we are in the chambers tonight. And we're going to be talking about, again, the issues that affect Black society. This show is a show, honestly, that we could do at any time when living in America. As a Black man or Black woman in America, we can always talk about the issues that we're going to discuss. Very rarely do I publicize the topic of the show in advance. I like to just kind of come on and do some things freely and from the top of the head. But I did publicize this one a bit. And I don't know if you've seen it, but if you did you go and read Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 3? It's a very short verse. I hope that you did. I hope that you did what I would normally do, which is read the entire chapter. But we're going to focus a little bit on the issues that are relevant to Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 3. But before we do that, I want to bring in a good brother, brother that I've gotten to know and find that we had some like-mindedness in the way we think. And I'm excited. I know that at some point I wanted to bring him through so we could talk about some of the issues. And I'm going to bring him in right now. This is a good brother, Brother Renee Metoyer. What's up, Brother Metoyer? How you doing, man?
What's up, QB? How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm great. Thank you for joining me and joining all of us. Right now, we got a few viewers in the chamber, and we're going to ask for some more. But thank you for coming, man. I know that doing the things that you do, that you're very busy, and I appreciate your time. So thank you for coming out, man.
My honor, brother.
You know, it's funny, in this time of social distancing, this is a way that we can try to connect through social media, through virtual calls and all of that, and even through a podcast. So, you know, it's just a good thing when you don't get a chance to see the brothers. It's a good thing to be able to connect with them in other ways. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I missed the
man.
fellowship. You know, we had a little not to interrupt your thing, but we had a little fire at our club, our chapter house back in November, man, and we did a little renovation. Have not been able to get back yet due to the renovation and then the pandemic. So I miss the fellowship and the brotherhood.
Yeah, man. And when you have a frat house, especially a frat house in a city like the city where you're from, and I want you to talk a little bit about that. The frat house really is the hub, where brothers could come together and not only do the business of the fraternity, but really do get into the fellowship. And I know you all do things typically on a regular basis, but as you mentioned, you had a fire there. So it just seems like, man, this year is crazy with all of the things that we're dealing with, man. So we do the best we can. We do the best we can, and we try to fellowship and call each other. Our Grand Basilis has asked us to call brothers on Wednesday and check on them and things like that. So I think things like this are good to have. So, bro, man, tell us who you are, man. Who are you, brother?
Brother, my name is Brother Renee Metoyer, Fall 86 Xi Sigma at Xavier University, Louisiana. I'm a Trey. Root to all the Treys out there. I actually graduated from Southern University in New Orleans, home of Alpha Lambda chapter, the Lumberyard. Graduated as a history major with the concentration in African and African American studies. And as far as the fraternity goes, I'm currently the New Orleans area state representative, appointed by our good brother, Brother Dr. Pat Smith. Honored to serve under him and to do what I can do for this great fraternity of ours. I've also been a past reclamation and retention chair, past talent hunt chair, and so I'm a life member number 4535. Let me not forget that. Life member number 4535. So 34 years in the frat, looking forward to 35 and 40 and 45 and so on and so forth. The Lord says the same.
Man, and it makes a lot of sense now, hearing what you studied in school, as to why you think like you do and approach things as you do, and are so passionate about the issues of black people. So yeah, man, 86, bro, Trey, tell us a little bit about your line, man.
My line was the Notoriously Nasty Nine. It was 9 of us. It's funny because we were actually right on that cusp of where it changed from pledging to what was it called? I forgot. I can't remember what it was called. The MEP or MIP.
It went MIP.
Right. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Transitions, man. I can't remember which one it was, but it was 9 of us. And unfortunately, it's 8 of us left. And I say unfortunately because my ace, he was asthmatic, and he actually died in his sleep one night. That was 18 years ago, as a matter of fact. So, man, that was one of the times that, and I think that was the first time that I sung the hymn at his funeral, man, and actually cried from the hymn, when it said, "And when we say our last goodbye, we will always love Omega Psi Phi." Man, that hit me so hard that day, man. Even as I think about it, it still wells up in me, man, because he and I, we actually came in as freshmen together. His name was Samuel Ellis Midget III. He was from St. Louis. I went to Sumner High School, the high school of Dick Gregory. He was also a conscious brother himself. But nevertheless, he died in his sleep, man. And, I was saying we came in as freshmen together at Xavier, and we became friends actually before we even decided that, and we did it independently. Before we decided we wanted to be brothers, and so we were friends before that. And when we got there and when we got online, it was just that much more special between him and me, and a couple of others as well. But especially between him and me, it was that much more special And so that was my ace in more than one sense of the word.
So 86, you were in the Lampados program.
I was in the Lampados Club, baby. Yes, sir. We walked around Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with fatigues and a Lampados shirt with our numbers on the back and boots. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we had on a suit and tie, black and white.
Above ground,
Yeah.
pledging, as it was called during that time.
Lamps in hand, baby. Lamps in hand all day long.
Yeah. Very interesting, man, because, I'm a little bit younger than you, brother, Metoyer, and I remember watching School Days as a youngster with my mom and my stepdad and seeing, G5G and all of that. And that was my first, I guess, introduction to a historically Black fraternity. And when I came to college and started to look at the yearbooks, from the decade that preceded us, it looked like I was watching School Days. I mean, the pledges were on the yard, they were on the quad, they sat together in the cafeteria. I understand in talking to my 85 pro fight, Johnny Smith, that there was a study hour time in the library from 7 to 9. All of the pledges were there sitting together studying. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's exactly how it went, brother. We, on the yard all day, always 2 by 2, never alone. Walk one to class, I don't go to class, however it went. And once we got out of class, we were we had to go to the library from 5 to 7. From 5 to 7, we went to Shrine on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Tuesday and Thursday was march practice. And we called it Shrine back then. We ain't called it sets or sessions. It was Shrine.
Okay.
We went to Shrine from from some time to some ungodly time, and but the brothers always made sure that we had our studies in order, because scholarship has always been important. It's always important, especially as we on college campuses. So brothers always made sure that we had our study time first prior to anything, and we had to be there.
So you are originally from New Orleans, is that correct?
New Orleans, born and raised, brother.
Man, tell us about your upbringing, man. Tell us about your upbringing, your family. Who helped you become the youth that found your way later on, going on to study history and now doing great work for the Black community?
Well, man, I have a long story, brother, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. But I grew up in what some consider to be a poor or bad section of New Orleans. It was called the Lower Ninth. It is called the Lower Ninth Ward. Well, Katrina was hit very hard. Katrina devastated my neighborhood, almost unrecognizable to this day still. But it was.
You're celebrating the anniversary of Katrina just a few days ago. Isn't that right?
But we observed it.
Yeah.
We observed it. I ain't gonna say we celebrated it, but in fact, in light of Laura, man, that was almost, I'm so glad that they didn't get the storm surge that it was predicted that they were going to get, because it would have been a complete devastation of the area. But nevertheless, back to family life. I'm one of 7. Most of my siblings are much older. My youngest sibling is 5 years older than I am. My parents were much older when I was born. My dad was 52. My mom was 47. And, I had a couple siblings, couple sisters that had gone to college prior to me. Both of them pledged AKA. So I had some knowledge of Greek life, but no real understanding. So I had independent thought as to when I got to college about what I wanted to do in terms of what fraternity I may be interested in, if any. So, my dad was a hardworking man. He worked at the post office for a very long time. And when he retired, he had like 3 or 4 years of sick leave, man. He always went to work every day. Didn't matter. He had 3 or 4 years of sick leave when he retired. My mom died young, when I was young, rather. She was 64 when she died. She died a month after I graduated from high school, so she never got to see me attend college.
Okay.
And as a result, man, I actually had a whole lot of struggles. Like I said, my story's long, but I'm not going to get into all of that. But I actually when I went to Xavier, I went as a pre-engineering major, changed, went into pharmacy school, did a year and a half in pharmacy school, learned some things, made some life changes, and actually wound up being a history major with a concentration in African and African American studies.
So you had some siblings that were Greek, certainly college educated. Did they introduce you to Omega Psi Phi in any way? Did they try to steer you to do something else? How influential were they in you deciding to go to Xavier, pledging Omega?
They like I said, I had heard from them about fraternities and sororities. One of my sisters tried to encourage me to be an alpha. I don't know, it was because she was an AKA. I know she had a good friend, a very good friend of hers that was an alpha, one of her study partners, and so she used to always try to tell me, "You need to be alpha." I'm like, "Nah, they ain't where it's at for me. I'm just not feeling that at all." And so. Although she, I must say, when I told her I wanted to pledge Omega, she gave me the $350 initiation fee that it cost.
Wow.
$350, bro. That's what it was.
Yeah, and it's not $350 anymore.
No.
Yeah, man. That's interesting. For me, when I think about like the influences, a lot of times there were Omegas around, but sometimes you just didn't know as a youth. You didn't know what it was, what it meant, and all of that. But you kind of watched how people moved, and you may have admired some things about those men or those women, and you knew, well, they went to college, so you knew they were educated. But you may or may not have known at the time, were they Omegas? Were they Greek? What was the impact of their actions in your lives? So, I know in talking to you, you have a son that recently was initiated. Tell us about your son.
Oh man, my son's name is Joshua Metoyer. He was a deuce on the 2020 line at Alpha Chapter. So I can honestly say that I made an Alpha Chapter, bro, literally.
Absolutely.
It was funny, QB, that leading up to his college days, some close friends and relatives would tell him that he had to be an Omega and he didn't have a choice. And I told him in front of them when they said that, I said, no, he does have a choice. I said, because Omega is not for everybody. And if he's not Omega material, which I knew he was, I mean, I know the kind of man he is, but if that's not what he was feeling, then it ain't for him. You got to feel this brotherhood to be a part of this brotherhood. It's not just something that you do just because your dad is. In fact, I heard him talking to one of my line brothers, who he calls Uncle Mark. He told his Uncle Mark that he said, in fact, that he didn't want to be in Omega because of some of the struggles that he had seen me go through. I had a long struggle with addiction, and it impacted our family to a great degree for a while. And so it kind of actually turned him off to that. But as he saw me persevere through that addiction, and then he saw the brotherhood as the brothers embraced me and supported me through that and beyond, that encouraged him, and he ultimately made the right decision.
Man, that is interesting, man. Certainly the right decision, and to be able to do it on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C., where our beloved fraternity was founded.
Yes, sir.
That is certainly awesome. Often, talk about how you can't really possibly get into the history of Omega the way in which an Alpha Chapter brother can. It's just it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, so, very interesting, brother.
What year is he in school? I know he's not done, right? He has another year or so, right?
He's got 8 years. He's a senior. He's a finance major at Howard. He's in the School of Business. He actually has a 3.55 going into his senior year, so he's handling business, and I couldn't be more proud of it.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that is awesome, man. And you know what? We talked a little bit yesterday, you and I, and thinking about like, man, who else can we have on the show? Man, I probably should have invited him. I don't know if he would have had time, but it would have been nice to kind of have him come through the chambers. Maybe I could get him another day, Brother Metoyer, because I just think it's awesome. The last show we did, we talked about legacy candidates. Myself and Brother Terrell, immediate past district representative, Brother Terrell, we talked about legacy and some of the challenges with that and some of the things that come along with that. And so certainly it'd be good to, having a son, wanting your son to follow in your footsteps in that way and to share that bond. That must be an awesome thing, man. I'm sure he knows your line brothers, they're his uncles. Does he know about the chapter tradition at your school where you were initiated?
Absolutely. While he was here, he got the opportunity to meet some brothers, and he sees the things we do. He's been to our homecomings, and our homecomings is obviously not like Howard's homecoming, anything like that. Being that Xavier school of about 3,000, we're actually coming into a homecoming tradition. But he's seen the things that we do in the years. He's come to me come with me to some of our Founders Day celebrations and things like that. So he was indoctrinated well, brother. He was indoctrinated well into the fold. But he knows a lot of my chapter brothers. I mean, he grew up with them. New Orleans is a pretty small community actually, and so we see a lot of each other. So he's gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of the brothers. He used to come over with me on Monday nights to the frat house, which is, Monday nights is our happy hour nights. So he got to see the gamut from the old brothers. We got our oldest brother in the chapter left, I think, is a 53 bro. No, actually he's older than that, the oldest one, but the oldest active in terms of being, mobile and whatnot. There's a 53 bro from Theta Sigma at Dillard University. So he's gotten to see the gamut of the brothers and what we do. I've taken him on different activities that we do, social activities and things like that, to try to keep him engaged in community activism.
Great job on that. Certainly it worked out extremely well for him. And I'm sure for you in your mind, that is awesome. I'm hoping to do something similar. That's why I'm asking the question, team. Hey man, you have had a lot of leadership roles, not just in your chapters, but in the district. I can honestly say, having been a transplant from other districts myself, when I really got active in 9th D work, you were one of those brothers that I saw at mostly every meeting. You were vocal, asking questions, leading, and even working on various committees on the district and international level. Tell us about, you shared with us some of your previous roles. What are you working on right now? I know that you're involved on an international committee. Tell us a little bit about that, man. Tell us a little bit about your current work in Omega.
Right now, I did omit something. As I said, I am still currently the New Orleans area state rep, but I'm also the co-chair of the International Social Action Committee, where Brother Cedric Spencer out of the 12D is the chair, and a great brother, man. He's a hard-working brother. He does a lot. So prior to the pandemic, we had intended, what we were planning to do was to have 3 voter registration symposiums on college campuses. We were planning to do one at we were thinking Houston, but probably at TSU at Texas Southern. We were going to do one in Florida and one in Atlanta. Those weren't set in stone, but those were like the preliminary sites we were thinking about doing. It would be voter registration, education, and mobilization. So on July 15th, we wound up having a virtual symposium on voter registration, education, mobilization. When we had a great panel of brothers, we have actually some dynamic brothers that's actually on the committee as well. A lot of brothers that's in politics, from around the country. And I'm kind of cynical about politics personally, brother. I'm really like a separatist at heart, to be honest with you. In terms of how we should work in this environment, in this society. I'm more of a Malcolm than a Martin, is my mentality. So I'm somewhat cynical, and the brothers and I kind of butt heads sometimes, but it's all in building up, as the scripture for tonight says. The time to kill, time to heal, a time to tear down, and a time to build up. But we're always building one another up while we're doing that. But the overall goal, man, is to uplift our community and to get our people to understand the importance of voting. That's the only way that we can operate in this system, is that if we get into those roles of power and legislative lawmaking, that we can actually make a difference and see and effectuate some change. Because as long as we standing on the sideline, and just looking at the game and yelling and talking about what you should have done, rather than getting in the game and grabbing the ball and run with it, then we don't really have a whole lot to say. So as cynical as I am, I still understand the importance of voting, and I vote every election. I don't miss one. It's our not only our right, man. It's our obligation. It's our duty, because we're standing on the shoulders of giants who fought and literally died for that right, that privilege, that honor to be able to vote and to speak for ourselves, because our vote is our vote is our voice, and that's the reality. And without voting, we really don't have a voice. We can shout as loud as we want from the corners, or from the steps of City Hall, but at the ballot is where it really counts, man.
So, team, I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. On the voting issue, there has been some talk that although we do have the right to vote, we also have the right to leverage the use of our votes to get the things that we want. So the discussion has been about getting a quid pro quo, which it's not a new concept in politics. The argument being that other special interest groups will utilize their leverage and will withhold their vote and promise their vote only when a candidate or a party has a specific plan or some specific benefit for that special interest group. And the argument that has been thrown out there is that Black people as a collective, and I understand that we're not monolithic, Black people comprise of a lot of different cultures, a lot of different languages in this country, many different lineages in this country. But in general, that Black people have not received the benefit of their vote since the inception of the amendment that gave us the authority to vote. So that being said, the argument has been made that, well, perhaps we should withhold our vote until a party or a candidate comes along and offers us something that is a specific benefit for us. What do you say to that argument?
I say we absolutely should hold our. There should be a quid pro quo. I completely agree. We do need to demand an agenda. It's complicated, is what I say. It's not really an easy answer.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, in my opinion, it's not an easy answer. I mean, if we don't vote, then what's our option? At the very least, we have the opportunity to get some progressive-minded folks into positions where some changes could be made, as opposed to the good old boys who really don't care anything about us. And I'm gonna be honest, brother. I'm not even so sure that many progressives really care about us as well. Other than the fact that if they're progressive, they may get our vote, or and I'm sure there's some good-hearted people. I mean, many good-hearted people. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah.
But to not vote is to vote anyway. That's the reality.
Okay.
Withholding a vote is a vote. Could you imagine if none of us voted in the upcoming election? Say in my state, let's see, my state in Louisiana, right? It probably doesn't matter if 100% of African Americans voted in this state or not. We're outnumbered by our counterparts, and this is a deep red state. So the reality is that in the presidential election, number 45 will probably get those electoral college votes anyway. And but let me say this while we're talking about that. It's really more important, most important, that we vote at local and state levels than we do at the federal level. I'm not saying that it's not important, but it is. So let's get back to the federal thing as well. Like, if we don't vote, right, and we're not voting just for a president, is what we got to understand. There's so many more things on the line that we're voting for, right? We have to understand that the current president, 45, has put in 300 federal judges in 4 years.
Yeah.
These people are lifetime appointees.
Yeah.
Lifetime until they die or decide to retire. So we're not just voting for a president. We're voting for future decision makers.
I agree with that premise. Certainly, much damage can be done by a president in 4 years. I mean, we've seen damage done by a president in less than 4 years. Tremendous damage done in less than 4 years. My position is that as a people, we are a bit scatterbrained when it comes to politics. We don't really do well with understanding what's necessary in order to get the things that we want. There was a great question or comment in our chat from Vicki Anderson Simons, and her statement. There were a few statements, but one was, "What's the Black agenda beyond expectations that we not be killed?" I think that is powerful, and I think that is it's interesting, and also it's sad that that's where we are in 2020, talking about being able to simply exist. We're not in the same position as other special interest groups, and I use that term very carefully, that are asking for different things. They're asking for immigration policies that work to their people's benefit, or they're asking for economic policies that work to their people's benefit. We're just asking to exist. Can I send my son to school? Can I send my daughter to school and not have to worry about her being killed? And I think that's very interesting. So I think first and foremost, I'm with her in the sense that, yeah, man, we need to be leveraging whatever power, authority that we have, and if it's through the vote, that's what we use to get the things that we want. And certainly to exist will be number one. But I think that there's some other unsettled business with respect to Black society that we need to look at. So I know we weren't supposed to be talking about politics, but as we get closer and we talk about the need for Black people to vote, we got people all over the place. There's been discussion by the Bros about why we shouldn't support the Democratic nominees, their history, their track record, the fact that we don't trust them. They've lost credibility in the minds of Black society. And then you got some other brothers that are saying, well, y'all are Trump supporters or y'all are Russians. Because if you're not going to support the Democratic nominee, by default, you're supporting the Republican nominee. You know, what are your thoughts about our choices, man? What do you? I'm curious to hear with your background, experience, and intellect. What is your opinion about this choice, quote unquote, that we have coming up in November?
You know, I often think that you know, we're in a position where we're choosing between the lesser of two evils. And I think that's where we are today. I'm not particularly a fan of Joe Biden. I'm not particularly a fan of some of the positions, not positions, or some of the prosecutions of Senator Harris.
Right.
However, I also understand that she's made some change. She's effectuated some change in criminal justice reform in California. And to me, brother, the bottom line is we are, if nothing else, we're choosing between the lesser of two evils. You know, it's unfortunate. Like I said, I'm not necessarily a fan of Joe Biden, but he's better than the alternative. And that's the best I can say right now. He's better than the alternative. Because the alternative, he can't even form his lips to say Black Lives Matter.
Right.
He can't form his lips to say it. You know, he says there are great people on both sides. Right. People carrying tiki torches. You retweeting people talking about white power.
Right.
You know, and the list goes on and on. Right. With and the list goes on and on with him. I can't even remember half the things that he said and a quarter of the lies that he's told.
So the philosophical question that I have is, what's better? Because I hear the lesser of two evils discussion. It's logical, but you know, what's better? Is it the overt racist that we have, or is it the closet racist that many people are accusing the Democratic nominees to be? What is your thought on that?
Well, if I had to choose, I can't. You'd have to blow my head off, but I'm not going to choose between an overt racist and a covert racist. I can't do that. You know, you told me I had to die, then I just have to die because I'm not going to choose that. I don't necessarily think the man is racist. Biden, that is. I think he's been misinformed and he's largely been privileged. I mean, look how old he is, man. We have to understand the time in which the man grew up as well. And how many of us can say that we don't have a different mindset than what we did 40 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago? So, you know, it would be ignorant of us to think that a person can't change and evolve in his thinking. And all I have to go by is his word at this point. But I think that if and when he gets elected, hopefully, that then we have to hold them accountable. You know, and I think we do have some things on the agenda. Other than is it just don't kill me? We do have some criminal justice reform issues on the agenda. There's a bill sitting on the Senate's desk right now that's waiting to be passed. Tim Scott, the Republican from South Carolina, has done a bill which, you know, they're bantering back and forth about who's blocking and who's not doing what. The reality is it's not being done. But there are things on the agenda. There's educational reforms on the agenda. So it's up to us that once these people get into office at this point, that we hold them accountable to what they do. Now, what it's upon Omega to do, to some degree, as much as we can, is to educate our people, because the reality is in mass, after having been disenfranchised for so many decades or centuries, even really, that we don't understand the power of voting. You know, oftentimes, man, I mean, understand, brother, many of our grandparents didn't have the right to vote.
Correct.
So we don't really understand the power of voting or the importance of voting. They didn't have the right to vote. They weren't engaged in that kind of dialogue, really. It was just take who you get. Now we are where we are. So there is dialogue going on. People are demanding things of these people. And you know, these things it's not just going to happen because we had a black president. You know, it would have been foolish of any of us to believe that the first black president is going to cure all the ills of this evil nation. And it's evil. It would be foolish of any of us to believe that one man could do it or that it would let him be done. Because the reality is, brother, that these people see power being wrested from them. And power is never given. It's always taken.
Correct. Correct. Brother Metoyer, we have 14 in the chamber right now. All of the brothers and all of our friends of Omega that are watching, we thank you. We ask that you go ahead and pound on the share button. We got 21 shares right now, Brother Metoyer. Let's get up to 30 shares. Everybody that's watching on Facebook, some individuals also watching on YouTube Live, go ahead and pound on the share button right now. Pound on the like button. Let's invite some other individuals, friends, and brothers to the conversation. As we continue with discussion of in the outer chamber, we got Brother Jason Richards, the 5 from Mighty Ka Theta, had an interesting statement, Brother Metoyer. He said that we are the only race that has so many institutional divides that it's harder for us. They killed all of our leaders, then made us hate each other. Hopefully these killings, and it means the recent killings, will galvanize us, but we also need a clear leader put forward. Why not the Bruz? What are your thoughts?
You know, it's interesting that he said that because let me take one part of that. First of all, when you said how the brother said how they made us hate ourselves, right? And when I said when you were asking me about my upbringing and my rearing and whatnot, and I told you where I came from. I came from, you know, a relatively poor neighborhood, and I was telling you how some of the struggles that I've had, and one of the struggles that I know about that we even have in Omega is colorism.
Oh boy, come on!
You know,
talk to me.
I grew up in I mean, obviously a black neighborhood. I'm a black man, right? But when brothers your color see brothers my color, they don't see me as a black man. Right. So I've had to scrap quite a few times in my life coming up where I did, you know, for being called white boy.
Yeah.
You know, that was an insult to me. I'm like, man, I'm white. You know, I'm talking about my hair and whatnot. And so colorism is a huge issue in our society. And as I said, it bleeds over into Omega. I know brothers probably you know, say it jokingly oftentimes, but it comes from somewhere. That's the thing. When brothers talk about the light-skinned brothers or the dark-skinned brothers and this and that, and I believe it's said jokingly and jest, and there's no less love for any other brother. But the reality is that comes from somewhere. Where did that come from? That comes from a hate of ourselves, and we've been taught that. We've been taught it. It's been promulgated on us, and we accepted it, and we live it out, and we do it still to this day in Omega, jokingly or not. It happens.
Brother Metoyer, man, Omega Psi Phi is a fraternity known for friendship. You mean to tell me that there's colorism in the great Omega Psi Phi fraternity incorporated?
I mean to tell you there is, brother.
Man, you know, it's funny because when you look back at the history of our organization, and the time period. Certainly our founders were a privileged group, and I use that word very selectively because they were living at a time of great discrimination, great adversity against blacks, and for them to do what they did during that time was nothing short of remarkable. But there has been discussions about many of our stalwart members, so even our founders, being lighter skinned black men, and then of course we've heard stories about how in some of the sororities there were tests and things of that nature that one would have to pass to be considered for membership based on the color of your skin. And I just think it's very interesting that even today in 2020, with all of the information that we have, knowing that the black man is the original man and all of that, the oldest human remains to be discovered were discovered in Africa. A black woman by the moniker of Lucy.
There you go.
That essentially all human life started in Africa and from a black man or black woman. And it's so crazy that in 2020, we're still so subject to white supremacy and indoctrination that we're still fighting amongst ourselves, even those that are educated of us. Right. I think that's fascinating. And for that to still come up today, it truly says that the attack has worked. How do we break out of that, man? How do we extricate our minds from this foolishness of arguing and bickering with one another based on the simple color of our skins?
Man, that's $1 million question. I mean, that's no different than saying, how do white folks and black folks begin to get along? Because that's how we kind of view ourselves within ourselves. Is light black skin and dark black skin.
Wow.
What I think is, and what I'm actually kind of pushing for, and I went to predominantly white Catholic high school here in New Orleans, and what I've been pushing them for in the last few years, and we've had more discussion recently actually, is a mandatory African American history class.
Okay.
To know that, first of all, our lineage does not start with slavery. We kind of tend to forget that, or that's left out of the history books, really, as it relates to American history, is that we didn't start as slaves. Right. And actually, I don't even like to say that we were slaves. I prefer to say that we were enslaved.
Nice.
Being slaves.
Nice.
But nevertheless, I don't have the answer to that question, brother. I wish I could answer that question. Is how do we do that? But I mean, it just all comes from education and understanding one another and where we are. Now, that's not to say that they've not had some legitimate reasons to feel certain ways about certain people, because certainly some light-skinned people were given more privilege by white people, and that was only to further the divide as well. That was to further the divide within us so that we would not unite. And then there were people that may have been my complexion or lighter that took advantage of that and treated darker skinned brothers not as well, or didn't pull them along with them. So I'm not saying that there's not necessarily any reason for the prejudice of people of different skin tones, but it's not legitimate.
Yeah. This is episode 7. We are running so behind, Brother Metoyer. And I kind of anticipated this because of the great conversation that you and I had. It's really a good thing when you can find a like-minded individual that you can bounce ideas off of. Right now, we got 20 in the chamber, Brother Metoyer, as we are discussing the issues of the day. The issues of the day arise out of this scripture, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 3. But before we come back, I want to get into this week in Black history. I want to just make a mention of how important this week was. Let's see here. August the 28th, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. makes "I Have a Dream" speech at the Lincoln Memorial. In 1963, the March on Washington, one of the most famous speeches really ever. Iconic speech. Wasn't the final speech of his life, but certainly the most memorable in a sense of what is taught and what we learn. August 28th, man, 1963. Dr. King gave the "I Have a Dream" speech in Washington, D.C. And that is this week in Black history. Brother Metoyer, we're back with an interesting topic, man. Interesting topic. I think, and you quoted it, but I want to make sure that all of our guests hear it. I'm going to start with verse 1 of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot. And verse 3, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build. This verse immediately jumped out at me, Brother Metoyer, on the last few days with the aftermath of the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, followed up by the triple shooting by 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse. Black people fed up, dog. Black people are at their wits' end. And that verse just jumped out at me. A time to kill and a time to heal. Tell me about your thoughts about this latest shooting, the Jacob Blake being shot in his back by law enforcement 7 times in front of his young boys, his young children. Man, give us your thoughts, man.
Man, completely inexcusable, brother. There's just no reason that should have gone down the way that it did. I've not heard any commands that were given to him, in terms of whether or not they were telling him to stop. I mean, there was no audio, but that could have been handled so many other ways. If they were commanding him to stop, they should have never let him get to the door and into the door. He could have been wrestled to the ground and handcuffed or something. I don't know exactly what was going on, but I know the end result is just completely inexcusable. Shoot the man 7 times in the back. It's just inexcusable, but there's nothing more I can say about that. That was handled completely poorly. Man, these people don't care about us, man. That's the bottom line. They don't care about us, and if they cared about us in mass, change would have been affected by now, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
And this is not an ill that Black people can cure by ourselves. Okay. We are a minority in this country. That's the reality. So we didn't create the problem, and we can't cure the problem alone. Certainly we need to be the leaders in the voices of it. But slavery never would have ended without the voices of the white abolitionists. Okay. So it absolutely takes white folks to voice their disdain at what's taking place in order for change to happen. Now, with this young man, Kyle Rittenhouse, it's more the same. It's more the same. I mean, it's like it's another Dylan Roof. They may as well just take him to Burger King and give him something to eat.
Right.
He's walking right up on the people with an AR-15 or whatever it was, and people have been shot already, and he's just walking up to them like, man, nothing going on, and they believe everything.
I'm struggling so hard, Brother Metoyer, with this thought that we need white people for this thing to completely stop, because, well, for a lot of reasons. I think about what you said about the Civil War, and certainly we had those politicians, those activists. Thaddeus Stevens comes to mind in history as a stalwart advocate against slavery out of Pennsylvania, and others. I struggle with this thought that they somehow are going to liberate us. As you mentioned, we don't know a time in history where power was voluntarily given. It usually is taken in one form or another. Even when you look at the history of, say, Haiti, and fighting against the French and really winning, but then ultimately being financially shackled, for their entire independent history since then, and how that has affected that nation even to this day. I struggle with this idea that white people in general are going to somehow decide and understand that what they're doing is wrong and have this epiphany and somehow start to change their views about us and about us being a threat to their existence. And so that's why I struggle with that, because I don't feel that they're going to make change. You've heard the arguments about, we voted, we've marched, we've prayed, what's next? I've seen a lot of Black people take an interest in tactical training. Even the brothers, I've seen brothers form groups where they train with munitions and hand-to-hand combat and all of these things in anticipation of something really bad. And so when this happened, especially the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, you got a 17-year-old from another state driving over and then killing 2 people and wounding seriously a third. I'm like, man, we got to do something, because I don't think that they are going to let up. And so that verse popped into my head immediately, that there is a time to kill and a time to heal. As brothers, as Black men, fathers, husbands, do we need to prepare ourselves, or should we be prepared in the event that white America, the majority, aren't going to be correct and kind and do the right thing? Should we be getting ourselves ready for some kind of physical or military combat?
In my opinion, yes. I'm a gun owner. I've taken my family to the range to teach them how to shoot. So I absolutely believe so. I don't think that. Well, let me go back to. I understand you're wrestling with the thought of white people giving up power, and I agree that they won't. However, I think that the influence that people of color are beginning to have on society at large, and with the advent of the internet and social media and whatnot, we're in the midst of change. Well, the change is coming. I don't know if it's going to be in my lifetime or in my children's lifetime, but change is coming. I mean, change is happening as we speak.
Okay.
But absolutely, I think we do need to be trained in arms. I've trained in some martial arts for years, actually, and actually Afro-Brazilian martial art, which came from the enslaved people in Brazil that came over from West Africa and Angola, called capoeira. So that was an enslaved people's art, and I trained in that years ago. But yeah, to answer your question, we absolutely need to be trained, and we need to be training our families as well.
Yeah, man. Just a few years ago, I was on the other side of that thing. I had said that for the majority of my adult life, I did not I did not carry a firearm. We did not have a firearm in my home, even when we started to have children. I still didn't have a firearm in my home, and the events that we've seen over the last few years has clearly forced me to change my opinion on the matter. Got myself trained up. My mother-in-law is also trained up, and now we're working on my wife, and she's getting trained up. And I intend to teach my children about firearms and just safety, just being aware. Because I always get asked the question, "Hey, Brother Brooker, as an attorney, what should I tell my son when he's driving?" Like I get asked that question every single week, and I do speeches and talks and podcasts, and we talk about this same topic all the time. But on the other hand, you got somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse. He's not law enforcement. He's just a kid from another state that decided that he wanted to get involved in a situation that was probably a little outside of his maturity level. And so my mindset about the matter is different now. Do have firearms now. I do carry every single day. I encourage those that have not trained in carrying a weapon to go out and get trained. I encourage Black people to go out and get trained, purchase firearms, store them safely, carry them safely, and be responsible gun owners. It's interesting because it's also potentially putting us in a more dangerous situation when we encounter law enforcement, because you don't know who you're going to encounter. And so the excuse, even with Jacob Blake, the excuse was, "Oh, well, we found a knife. We found a knife down by the floorboard, and we didn't know if he was going after the knife." So it's definitely a conflict, man. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's we can go beyond Kyle Rittenhouse in terms of civilians taking the law into their own hands, and look at what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, right? Mm. These were three white men that hunted this brother down and killed him over in Georgia, but this is not anything that's new to us, but Brooker.
Yeah.
We've been dealing with this for decades, centuries. I mean, literally. We would be, for me, as a husband and a father, I would not be carrying out my manly duties or my husbandly duties or my fatherly duties to leave my family unprotected in such a time as this.
Wow.
To where I can't defend them, in the event of some white person thinking that that they have the authority, or that they feel threatened because we're Black and they want to stand their ground, and I don't have the ability to protect me and mine. I'd be
right.
derelict in my duties as a man.
Right. Man, Brother Metoyer, I told you again that this would go fast. We are already up over time. We have 17 in the chamber. I'm going to go ahead and just bring in our sponsors real quick. Brother Metoyer, we're sponsored by friendsforqbforvice.com. Brother Metoyer, man, this is crazy, but again, we are, man, we're almost done. We are almost done, man. I would love to have you back at some point, man, because there are some things that I think that we need to cover that we didn't get into. You opened up some fascinating things that I wanted to get into, and we didn't get a chance to really dig deep. The colorism issue in Omega, I think, is fascinating. We didn't get into that. The voting thing, we'll probably be able to talk about that up until the actual election. But before we do that, I just want to share QBforvice.com is a sponsor of the show. So I want to go ahead and just play this quick commercial. Greetings, brothers. My name is Quentin Brooker, Esquire, 6 Spring 98, Mighty OE, and I'm currently running for the position of First Vice District Representative at the 84th 9th District meeting in Dallas, Texas in 2021. Brothers, I'm running on a platform of leadership with integrity and a vision for excellence. My platform is based on a double enthusiasm point of view. 2 E's. The first, enhancing the international influence of the 9th District within Omega. And secondly, with empowering Black society through my 18 Pearl program. Brothers, I'm asking that you follow me on social media at QB Law on Instagram and Twitter, and at my website, qb4vice.com. That's QB, the number 4, vice.com. Brothers, vote for me at the 84th 9th District meeting in 2021 for First Vice District Representative. And remember, QB for the 9th D. All right, man, we're back. Appreciate you, bro. I'm excited about this conversation. It went a few places that I didn't expect it to go.
I apologize, brother.
No, man, it was great, and I wish we had more time to dig in, but I try not to hold people too long. We did get up to 26 shares. We got a bunch of comments, a bunch of questions. Man, so many different things to get into. Brother David Williams, one of my chapter brothers at Rho Beta Beta, he said that he believes in gun ownership, but in the defensive sense, not in the offensive sense. I appreciate your comments, Brother Williams. We also have my man, Brother Harold Netter, who came on. He just said, great job, team. You can't go wrong with the lower 9th Ward bros. So big shout out to Brother Netter. That's my man. Man, any last words for you, Brother Metoyer? Any shout outs? You have any shout outs for any of the bros all around the world, any of your friends, anybody that you want to say what's up to?
Man, first of all, I want to thank you, Brooker, for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I know we went some places that we weren't intending to go.
Yeah.
But you know that's how it goes sometimes, and I'd be happy to join you anytime you invite me, brother. But I think my supposed brother that was supposed to be my DP before he left was supposed to be watching Brother Terrence Aguilar. And if he's on, I want to shout out Brother Aguilar, all my brothers at Row 5 chapter. You know, as I was saying, you know, Monday nights is normally our happy hour nights. And actually tonight, but what we actually had, I'm going to just say this quickly, we had a Zoom meeting with some candidates because normally, you know, during election season, we'll have candidates come over to the house and give their little spiels and talk to us and whatnot. But we did that by Zoom tonight. That's what we did because in place of our regular Monday night happy hours, we did it by Zoom. But just thank you, brother. I appreciate you for allowing me to be here. And whenever I can be back, I'd be happy to.
Appreciate you, man. And definitely I'll be asking for you to bring your son, the young Alpha chapter brother, to be here as well, so we can perhaps hear about some of his experience in the frat. Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate all of my friends and all of the brothers that tuned in for the Outer Chambers. This is episode 7. Once again, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 3. We're at the end, Brother Metoyer. I'll just leave everybody with this. We are a beautiful people. We are the original people, Brother Metoyer, and we must learn all about ourselves. Again, man, this is Quentin Brooker, 6 Spring 98 OE, Rho Beta Beta chapter, Mighty 9th District. I'm the immediate past district counselor of the 9th District. And man, thank you for joining us in the Outer Chambers. We will be back next week. In fact, it'll be this upcoming Sunday. Brother Metoyer, I'm going to have all my LBs on the show, man.
All right.
So please tune in. It's going to be interesting. I was telling the bros how my LBs are, they're about some of the only brothers that can really, really push my buttons. and get to me. So it's going to be funny, man. So I'm looking forward to having my LBs on the show. But until then, man, peace and greetings to all of the brothers out there, and farewell. Thank you, brother Metoyer. I'll holler at you, good bro.
Rue.
Rue, dog.